Another thing I wanted to talk about in the wake of my father having a stroke, pretending that's not what it was, going untreated, and continuing to go about his life, putting other people in danger from driving when he's so weak and numb and at risk of collapsing, is the effect that these sort of stubborn people have on those around them. It's one thing to care for someone when they are in need of extra assistance. It's another thing that's exponentially harder to try and care for someone who will not acknowledge or adjust to those limitations. And I know this personally all too well, and it feels really weird seeing it play out for my mother now. It puts you in a position where you're not just picking up the slack. You're now entirely compensating for another person and then some from having to fix things that they can't do anymore but try to do anyway, which wouldn't be the case if everyone just acknowledged the new dynamic. Like, here's a small case example for helping someone who has just had a stroke. Like, rather than let someone else do the dishes, the person who had a stroke without full use of their arms anymore will try to do them anyway. And then it is put on the caregiver not just to finish the chore that they would have had to do already, but to potentially clean up a broken plate that the stroke haver dropped in their stubbornness to continue to do the task anyway, or to soothe and deal with a pissed off person because they're mad that they can't do the thing that they used to do anyway. I know it doesn't feel good to admit to limitations or have to adjust. Nobody wants to, but it often unfairly puts more pressure on those trying to help when they don't acknowledge that. And it's not just a physical toll to be rushing around trying to fully compensate for someone else's inability when they stubbornly push through and make things harder. It's a mental toll, too. If they are that stubborn, you can't reason with them to please not put you in that worse position. Like, not only will they not stop trying to do things as they normally would have, denying the need to change, but get defensive about it. In many cases of getting met with resistance, such stubborn people will go out of their way to try to do more than they normally would, just to try and prove the point that they're fine and they don't need help, which is extremely stressful when you're their immediate provider. It escalates things from you just being a bit of a helper to needing to constantly monitor them because they are actively trying to do something stupid and might hurt themselves. Days after the stroke, when my father can't feel his whole damn arm, my mother came home from her short shift to find him on a ladder outside, icy ground, trying to get snow off the roof. Like, my father doesn't understand how acting that way multiplies the strain on my mother. Not only is she doing extra to keep up the daily chores, she's now going to be worried that every time she takes her eyes off of him, he's going to try and be sneaking, doing something that he shouldn't. Something that could either greatly risk himself or cause more for her to have to clean up, when the gracious thing to do would just be to not. It's not a situation or a dynamic that I'm sure many people can relate to, but I can, unfortunately. In this memoir, I tried, though I'm not sure I succeeded, to express the fear that came with ever leaving the house when I was my ex's caregiver. All the necessary tasks I needed to fulfill, from getting groceries to doing laundry off-site, were all tinged with that extra edge of worry that what I'd come back home to would be worse than what I'd left. It made me anxious, always on alert, hurried to do anything, and most dangerously of all, it isolated me. It makes you feel like there's nothing you can do but keep watch over them because you love them and you don't want them to hurt themselves, but the only way to guarantee that is to wear yourself out. And that's what my mom is experiencing, which is surreal to realize. I've already learned that lesson, that though we may feel a duty to unconditionally support loved ones in their time of need, it is still unfair and unacceptable for them to pile more onto your plate through acts of sabotage. Whether the root cause is stubbornness, negligence, unawareness, it doesn't matter. When it comes to the person who's got limitations which they refuse to factor in, I am sympathetic to that. Up to a point, obviously. It's new and scary. All they can really process might be that they're hurting, so they're not thinking about how it's affecting others, too. It's a complex dynamic, being a caregiver to someone who is reluctant to receive help but needs it nonetheless. It's hard to mediate in general, but I also don't think that older generations were raised with the healthy slash emotional intelligence to handle it with the necessary nuance. I mean, I absorbed that too, and it took me a long time to break free of the vicious cycle with the realization that I didn't deserve to be put through so much. I slash they internalized the idealistic paradigm that if you love them, you put up with them. Even if you don't, you still have a responsibility to them, which is what leads to such one sided toxic relationships. When you're not taught that a relationship should be equal, it doesn't even occur to you to seek sustainability from both parties. There is no line of learned thought that I will stand by you in your time of need, but only if you do not make things harder for me in the process. Because it's only fair. There's only so much one person can be expected to give to someone who will not act to help themselves, or at the very least, only so much responsibility that a person should be expected to feel in the wake of someone sabotaging themselves. I've been doing my best to instill these tidbits of emotional intelligence to my mother, who needs to hear that there is a point where what's being put on her becomes inarguably unfair. Like, she's allowed to ask for help from others, even if he doesn't want her to. She's allowed to say no when dad heaps on extra pressure to perform in his incapacity. And she's allowed to be pissed off when he does things that pose unnecessary risks to himself or to her. As with all human relationships, no one size fits all. I don't want people to come away from this video thinking that I'm a cold-hearted bitch who thinks that you should abandon the people you love the second that they need more from you. Though, I'm sure some people will get that message. But every relationship is and should be a give and take. Some people just, as a fact, do need more assistance than one other person can give. And that's where the lost concept of community is supposed to come in. I posed all of this with the assumption that those who can relate are currently stuck in the isolation of being a sole caregiver. And I want them to know that breaking themselves while trying to help someone else is not a sustainable equation. Even if there is no easy or known solution, it's important to understand when slash why this dynamic happens and acknowledge that it is not how things should be. Please send this video to someone who needs to hear that. If you found this interesting or helpful, please like the video. If you think I'm an awful person for not subscribing to the idea of truly unconditional love, I'm sorry, but you probably won't like the rest of my channel either. Anyway, until my next video, I hope you all take care of yourselves. Bye.